Hello and welcome to the PMQ live update for today, which is Tuesday, January 25th. Happy Tuesday to everybody out there. It's been a while. Happy Tuesday to Mark. Hello, Mark, the
Happy,
cheese dude Todd.
happy Tuesday to you too, Brian.
Thank you so much. So, again, like I said, it's been a little bit of a while. We've had a couple of reschedules, in the last, Mark being one of them. But we do have another one coming up next week. Alessio Lacco of the Atlanta Pizza Truck. He's the first AVPN certified mobile pizza unit out there. So he's making good quality, good style
Wow.
pizza. Well, all pizza's good, but you know what I mean. He's making that
Right.
traditional Italian style mobile unit. He's feeding the Karate Kid. And if you want to know
Yeah.
what that means, you're going to have to tune in. That's all I'm going to say. So without hyping it up as much as I can, welcome. Today we have our rescheduled hard cheeses. Are they the star of the show or just glorified extras with Mark, the cheese dude, Todd? Mark, why don't you say hello to everybody and tell us who you are? You got like a minute and a half.
Who am I? Mark Todd, the cheese dude. Travel around the world, itinerant cheese bum, teaching people the ways to appreciate and use cheese better. I've done seminars and trainings in dozens of countries and for most of the major pizza chains and from America all around the world. And I basically have a good time in life.
Wow. Man knows who he is and what he does. That's awesome. I love
That's
it. All right. So today, as I mentioned, today's show is going to be hard cheeses. Are they the star of the show or glorified extras? And basically, I wanted to. I don't want this to just. I don't want it to turn into a show about Parmesan because it very much could, because it's that hard cheese that everybody just thinks about. Well, you're a layperson, you're a regular person, so we don't want to do that. There are so many
right.
more out there, and that's kind of what this is. Not to put Parmesan down, but maybe not even put it in its place in a bad way, but you know what I mean? Bring everything else up to the attention that Parmesan gets. So, why don't you give us a brief rundown of some of the most popular hard cheeses out there, and then maybe about their tastes and characteristics. And these might be ones that we already know about, just the top tier ones that most people think about.
Well, the reason everyone knows Parmigiano Reggiano is because it is one of the top cheeses in the world. If you ask any serious cheesehead, they will list that as usually in their top three, if not their number one. It is just one of the most fabulous cheeses in the world, but it is by far not the only hard cheese. And if there was only one to choose from, it would be a pretty dull world. Hard cheeses in Italy range from whole milk cheeses like Asiago, Piave Vecchio, and then some of the part skim cheeses like Parmesan. When you're talking about hard cheeses, the milk content, whether it's a whole milk or part skim, will go a long way towards telling you how it is going to perform and how to manipulate it, whether you shave it, whether you grate it, and how it's going to work in the cooking applications. So Parmesan and all the Italian hard cheeses are in somewhat similar families, other than the sheep's milk version Romano. But then you have cheeses from Northern Europe, like Gouda or Gouda, which is a gorgeous cheese when it's aged. I've had it up to 25 years old, and it's an outstanding cheese. It becomes quite butterscotchy and caramely as it ages, and literally dark brown like caramel, and almost like a dessert cheese. Goes beautiful with a dark brown beer, like a Belgian double. But then you have American hard cheeses as well. California is famous for a cheese called Dry Jack, which is a whole milk hard cheese that was discovered kind of by accident just after World War One, when refrigeration was somewhat new, and a warehouseman in San Francisco lost track of the rotation on his product. Some of it, the soft, fresh Monterey Jack, got left in a refrigerator for about a year, and it came out hard as a rock. They realized they had not ruined it; they had made it better. And the cheese you see there is the Dry Jack. The Vella, my favorite. There's several people who make it. The coating on the outside is really just to seal the cheese. It is cocoa, bitter chocolate, no sugar, so it's not really tasty. It's cocoa with a little black pepper and vegetable oil, and it's rubbed on at about, I think, 3 months or so of aging. just to seal the cheese so that as it ages and dries, it doesn't get mold, it doesn't get bugs or anything like that. So it's really there as a protectant, and it makes it look cool. Some people eat it, some don't. But the cheese itself is a beautiful hard cheese in the family, kind of like an Asiago, because it's whole milk. So it will shave, whereas Parmesan, part skim, will grate beautifully.
Well, yeah, and we're gonna be talking about that, I guess, a little bit later. But that's a nice one right there. I like how you recognized it right away just by that one picture.
Oh yeah,
that is why you are the dude. So I did want to let everybody know, whoever is watching out there, that you can't ask Mark any question about hard cheeses or any cheeses in general. Hard cheeses is what we're talking about today, but he doesn't shy away from the big questions out there.
Whatever.
So. So actually, moving on with the hard cheeses until somebody throws up that gotcha journalism. What are the main differences between the cheeses? Well, I'll tell you what. Actually, before that, I wanted to ask you this: what's the difference between Parmesan and Parmigiano Reggiano? That's been going out to eat with some people, and we were having that discussion. And it's pretty much, we just figured the Americanized, quick manufacturer, version of good cheese.
It's not just the Americanized. There is a region in Italy that's part of 3 different territories or counties, what we would call counties, that like Reggio Emilia, Parma, and one other that escapes my memory at the moment. But if your cheese is made in that region, and it is made by the cows on your farm, you can call that Parmigiano Reggiano. That is a DOP. It's a protected name, protection of origin name, so no one else can call it Parmigiano Reggiano. Now, those names are relatively new. In the last 40, 50 years, they've started to become more popular and more widely used. But the cheese itself, the recipe for making Parmesan, has been made around the world for over 100 years. So a lot of people were already making Parmesan. But now there's a big brouhaha about whether you can call it Parmesan or not. Parmigiano Reggiano is controlled. Only one, you have to come from one area.
Right.
But
like champagne it's got to be from desert. Okay.
Exactly. Now the difference in Italy, even there literally are farms where the line goes through the farm, and if the cows are on one side of the farm, the line, that the milk can go into making Parmigiano Reggiano. If they're on the other half of this farm, that has to go into Grana Padano, because that's the cheese that is like Parmesan, but it's made outside of that designated geographic region.
Wow, I wonder if that's a good or a bad thing. They can be involved in 2 different markets, or they're
there is that. Thing. There is that. There's another one that comes from the mountains called Trentino, which is made identical to Parmesan, but it's made up in the mountains. Some people say that's even better because it's mountain milk. It's all in your taste.
So as far as what is the taste on that you're going to get the difference between? Let's just do those top 3: Asiago, Pecorino Romano, and Parmesan.
Well, let's step back one first before that. Pecorino is completely different than all of the others. Pecorino, the word pecora is sheep in Italian. So if it says Pecorino, that means sheep's milk cheese. Sheep's milk cheeses are very different than cow's milk cheeses. And this particular sheep's milk cheese that comes from the area of Rome, Pecorino Romano, excuse me, that cheese is aged about 5 months. It's fairly dry. And because of the way it's made and the way it's aged and the way it is salted, it picks up a lot of flavor really quick. So at 5 months, it's fully ripping strong. Parmigiano Reggiano is cow's milk. It's made with part skim milk. They take morning milk, they take evening milk, take the cream off of it, bring in the morning milk, add it together. I believe that's right. Sometimes I get those backwards. But half of the cream is taken off basically, and so the milk is then the cheese is made into milk's made into cheese that has a higher protein, lower fat ratio. That makes it perfect for grating. That cheese, when it's perfectly ripened at about 24 months, has flavors of the overwhelming flavor is candied pineapple or dried pineapple, that intense flavor of pineapple. That ester is overwhelming in Parmigiano Reggiano if it's done right.
Does that mean is it okay to use on pizzas now? That's a whole new conversation, I guess. It's,
now,
with the pineapple hint.
What the whole thing about anything that we call an ester is a highly volatile chemical. That's what gives things their aroma. That's what gives things, I should say, their good aroma. Ketones and aldehydes give things bad aromas. But these esters go away really quickly. So when you bust open a brand new wheel of Parmesan, it's an amazingly intense smell. 15 minutes later, the face of that cheese has almost very little of it left because it's all evaporated off. So when you cook with Parmesan, that goes away.
Okay, well, I got more questions about that later. I do want to jump into that. Jim Schuster says, hi, Mark, there from the Dutchman's Pizza, and he's just checking in. He actually does have another question, too. He wants to know if there's a website or a book that teaches about the different cheeses or where they come from, a must-see for cheese lovers. Where do you go when you don't know about a cheese?
I'm old, so I go to books because I still have books. So I have books. In fact, they're right over here. The Cheese Primer by Steve Jenkins is probably one of the best Bibles of cheese. It's put out by a very opinionated cheesemonger from New York City. And not all of the information is current, but it's really pretty good and is a good a background for a huge number of cheeses. There's also a bunch of specialty books, Cheese Bible, the Book of Cheese, French cheese, all sorts of different books. But if you want one that's just one size fits all, the Cheese Primer from Steve Jenkins is probably my go-to book.
All right, and that was easily Googleable.
Sure.
I hate saying that word. But all right, Jim, so check there, and you can check this on rotation at the Facebook and Pizza TV. So that was a long list. Mark was ready to go. You thought you had him, Jim, but no. All right, one more, and then we'll move on. So Courtney, and this is pertaining to what we were actually talking about. Courtney T wants to know, is Pecorino Romano the same as Romano cheeses? So I know sometimes maybe people shorten it, or maybe it's two different ones. Mark.
Again, it's like Parmigiano Reggiano or Parmesan. Parmigiano Reggiano is a specific cheese that is protected by European regulation. It can only be made in a very specific area. Parmigiano Reggiano comes from one area. Pecorino Romano comes from a different area. It has to be made with their sheep, has to be made in their way, has to be aged in their type of way. If it's made any place outside of that area or not made with sheep's milk or any other aberration that can make it not Romano, it's now Romano. It's not Pecorino Romano. That is a protected name. But anybody can use the name Romano at this point. They're trying to block that one too.
Very much. Very good.
You'll never see, if it comes from the U.S. and it says Romano, it's cow. Guaranteed.
Okay. Well, I was almost going to say it's all about where you're from. I was going to make a joke banner, but I mean, it really is. It's all broken up into regions.
It's terroir. It's the flavor of place. It's the flavor of tradition. It's the flavor of the animal that they have. The breed's different. Yeah. What they eat is different. How they make it's different. Everything about it. That's why you go around the world and eat.
Well, if we did gloss over something that anybody's interested in, go ahead and ask it here. If I didn't ask the question, or maybe you wanted some more information. But with that said, we talked about the difference between Parmesan and Parmigiano Reggiano, which is, again, and it's all broken down by reasons, a little bit of the flavor characteristics. Can you talk about a few of the lesser known cheeses? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I did not. I covered Parmigiano Reggiano, the flavor on that. The flavor on Asiago has some of those same kind of tropical fruit flavors, not nearly as intense, but it has more of a nutty flavor. and a little bit more nutty, like rich cashew almond type nut.
Yeah.
And then it has a bit of a floral bouquet as well. And then you get to Pecorino Romano, and that's just flat sharp. It's got it's a real Pecorino Romano has a distinct sheep flavor and aroma to it, and it smells intense. It smells sharp, piquant, and that is how it tastes. So there you go. I just want to get those in.
He kept emailing me back and forth, folks, about no, do I need to get cheese for this? Are we doing a tasting? And I'm like, no, Mark, it's not. But it made me sad. Plus, I can't. I'm doing the vegan thing anyway, so I can't even do it anyway.
We'll get together and do it sometime, man.
Yeah, I would sit here like this. Eat that one, Mark. Eat that one.
Oh
okay.
My God. Yeah.
So, can you go ahead and talk? We're talking about the hard cheeses, and we've talked about the main guys. You know, like the big three, I guess. Can you talk about some of the lesser known cheeses that are out there? Maybe some of the, what are we calling them here? The uncredited extras that are out there that don't get a lot of use, or maybe do get use, just they're not at the top.
In the people in Europe that are their undisputed king of aged cheeses is Italy. They do make some aged cheeses. In Switzerland, they make one called Sprinz that looks exactly like Parmesan. But the real hard cheeses typically come from the mountainous regions of Italy, and Piave Vecchio is one of my favorites there. It's similar to Asiago. It comes from a similar region up in the Alpine region, and it has it's aged anywhere from a few months all the way up to several years. And the aged version, the Vecchio version, is very much, I think, like good for you. Is very much like somewhere between a cheddar and an Asiago. It's got or maybe a Alpine, maybe a Gruyere, not even, because it doesn't have the Alpine, the wash rind, but it's similar to, closer to Asiago than it is to Parmesan. But it has a beautiful flavor, rich nuttiness to it, and I just love that cheese. It was one of the first hard cheeses I really fell in love with. But that's one of the alternatives from Italy. Like I said, a lot of people are familiar with the Italian hard cheeses. Very few people have ever experienced aged Gouda, and that's one I think should be on everybody's must-try list, because not that many people have had it, and it is different than any other cheese you have ever tasted. If there's any Norwegians or Swedes and they've had Gjetost, this is almost sweet like a Gjetost. It's almost caramelized. The look of it, as you look at the cheese there, it looks like caramel or butterscotch.
Yeah.
And the first time I tasted it, I wrote it up as caramel butterscotch dipped in peat whiskey. That's the way I described it. I'll stand by that. And they have some versions that are raw milk. Burenkäse or Burenkäse is a raw milk version, usually about 3 years old. Means farmer's cheese, Burenkäse. Then there's a couple of pasteurized milk versions that are quite good. Sand Canter is one of my faves. It's a 4-year. But if you can get a 4 or 5 year Gouda, you will have an experience very different than anything you've ever had in a cheese before. That's
it starts off pretty soft, and then it gets harder as it ages, right?
Well, so all of them do. I mean, in America, when we say the word Asiago, we only think of one cheese. We think of that hard golden cheese that comes shredded on a salad or shaved on top of a salad. In Italy, that ain't how they eat most of it. They eat it fresh. They eat it in basically the same texture that we eat Monterey Jack. That creamy, soft texture, and it has a lot of open little holes in it. That's called Asiago Fresca, and that is the way they eat the majority of their Asiago. They also age some into a medium and then to a Vecchio or an aged version, and that's the one that made it over here. So almost all of the hard cheeses except Parmesan and Grana Padano are available somewhat younger or aged.
Okay. Yeah, I caught this. I was looking for interesting. I didn't see them open one up at the factory. That's pretty.
Yeah, that's Trentino. That's the one I was telling you about. That's the mountain cheese.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I mean, and yeah, and that's what I'm loving to learn. So I want to see other people's questions about different types of cheeses and flavors, maybe something they've come across or that I
Right.
haven't seen. So
When you pop that
um,
open like that, the aroma of like pineapple upside down cake, you know how you cook that pineapple and it gets caramelized? That aroma of caramelized pineapple is just freaking overwhelmingly beautiful. Um, so yeah, that's a gorgeous cheese. And all of the different hard cheeses in Italy that are like Parmesan stencil their outside with something to tell it what it is. If it says Reggiano Parmesan, you know that. The one that
yeah,
just showed there, if you looked, it had a big oval that said Trentino, and then it had mountains on the bottom of it. That means it's a mountain cheese. So,
yeah, and I did actually have a picture earlier of the stamped in Parmigiano.
mhm.
It's really cool to see him do all that.
And you know, if you're ever in a place where you can see multiple wheels opened, you'll see that Parmesan changes color through the season. In the winter, it's almost white. In the summer, it's gold, 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 and that's because of the diet of the cows change.
Makes sense.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love watching it. They still have the old guy at the end of the tour with his hammer
Yep,
listening to the cheese. So it's
that's
great.
how you tell. That is how you
Yeah.
tell. They do that with Swiss cheeses, the giant, the huge wheels of Swiss that are big as a tabletop. Though you'll hear them banging around on that. They do it on Gruyeres, anything like that, because you can hear if there's fissures. You can hear if the cheese
Yeah.
has gotten separations, and that's one of the things you're really looking for. That means something's going
That's
wrong.
yeah. To have that kind of ear is amazing. I wouldn't know, man.
Oh,
That's I
it's
can't even find a stud in the wall by banging on it. So it's
I can't do it with a magnet, dude. Don't feel bad. Yeah,
yeah, and I'm hit and miss with those detectors. Don't even get
yeah.
me started. So are there? We've talked about some of those those are European lesser known cheeses or lesser used. I should say
Hmm.
maybe. What are there any American cheeses that stand up that you can think of, and that also kind of stand up? How do they stack up against the European versions, in your opinion?
Well,
And what are some
in
differences?
America, we have a lot of the cheeses in the U.S. have what they call a legal or federal standard of identity that will tell you how the cheese has to be made, aged, how much fat it can have, how much water it can have, and Parmesan. Um, because in Italy you can buy Parmesan at 12 months old. In the U.S., it only has to be aged 12 months, 10 months, excuse me, in America. So when America first started releasing and producing Parmesan for commercial uses, it was being released right at 10 months because then they could get their money back. But
Hmm.
it doesn't have a lot of flavor and it's quite elastic still at 10 months. It's perfect at that age for making the crisps, parm crisps, where you do them on like nonstick pan or something like that. The 10-month age is beautiful because the protein bonds are still really nice and firm. But as the cheese ages, it becomes much more crumbly. The protein breaks down, and that makes it easier to grate and shave. Um, but it also intensifies the flavor. And in America, for a long time, we just did 10-month. Well, about 25 years ago, we started experimenting, and now there's 2 or 3 or 4 companies doing really beautifully aged parmesans. One of them is Belgioioso doing American Grana, which is made in the same shape and size wheel as
Mm.
Parmesan, aged out 18 months. There's one that is made in a flat, kind of like a round cheddar daisy, a 20 pound cheddar daisy size. And that is called Stravecchio
Oh
um,
yeah.
from Anago Cheese. Oh, they used to be Anago. Now they're Sartori. Sorry, guys. Um, and those are both beautiful cheeses. The American Grana really is very Parmesan like. The flavor I on the smaller wheel though I find gets intense very very quick, and I like both of them. There's also in, like I say, California has Dry Jack. There's also a number of people making aged Alpine cheeses in the Northeast. People excuse me, Jasper Hill. The sellers at Jasper Hills have some beautiful aged cheeses. Um, so there's
Yeah.
cheese galore in the U.S. now, and hard cheeses are a little bit longer in coming because of the investment that it takes to do them.
Yeah.
You have to make the cheese today and then wait 2 or 3 years to get your money back. And to build that kind of an inventory takes a few years to really make your money back on it.
Yeah.
So
And
a
that
lot of
first
the newer manufacturers aren't doing it yet.
Yeah, well, in that, yeah, it is that long-term investment, obviously, to get started and going. And that first one over there was that Dry Jack, the Vella's,
Bella,
Vella,
Bella, yeah, the
Bella,
Bella family.
yeah, Bella Dry Jack. And then this is also, this is, you said it was, I thought it was
American
the Parmesan,
Grana.
but it's the Grana.
That's American Grana from Belgioioso. Yep, and it's in the same size
Okay.
wheel as the Parmesan.
Oh, so this is exactly what you were just talking about. Awesome.
Yep, that's the exact wheel, and it's aged 18 months, which is Grana Padano is aged 16 to 18 months, and it's really quite good at that age. But there's a sweet spot for that style cheese that happens between about 18 and 28 months. Right in that range, you really start to get that tropical fruit flavors really intense. Once it hits about 30 months, that tropical fruit drops off, and you still have great cheese. It's still nutty and beautiful and rich, but it loses that tropical fruit flavor. So when you see people at Trader Joe's saying, "Oh, look at the 5-year," yeah, there's a reason we sell that to Americans.
Yeah, that's that's cool. That's cool. We send a lot of our worthless crap all over the world, so
it's not worthless.
It's not. It's made in the USA, and I
anymore.
love every bit of it. Don't send your hate emails to me. Send them to an editor at PMQ. That's somebody else.
And by the way, you talk about the investment. In Italy, they got around that problem because farmers don't own their cheese. From the day after they make it and form it, well, a couple days after, once they get it in the wheels and get it to a certain place, banks buy it.
Yeah.
All those big lines of Parmesan wheels you see, the aging sellers and stuff, those are all banks, literally like money banks. That's who owns the Parmesan.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting listening to those stories when we were over there in Parma about that. It's a side that you don't think about. It's cool enough just to see the wall, but now with that said, I know you can get a version of all of these cheeses over here, but I mean, like if you're running a pizzeria, which is what our audience mostly is, is it hard for them to get something, say, in the wheel form? I know you said some people are doing smaller wheels, or even I guess the Grana Padano, but is it hard for us to get the authentic Italian stuff over here in maybe those bigger quantities? And does it matter? I mean, coming fresh in wheel and getting it for ourselves versus buying something that's already been processed a little bit.
If you have a decent food service distributor, they usually will sell Parmesan in whole wheels, either sometimes half wheels, but it's usually whole wheels or eighth wheels, where they cut it 4 ways and then in half. And eighth of a wheel is like 6, 8, maybe 8 pounds, something like that, 9 pounds. And that's perfect. A shop can go through that within a matter of weeks if they're using it a lot, and that keeps it fresh, keeps it turning quickly. But always buy it whole. If you buy pre-graded, you will be, pre-graded Parmesan. The first thing you want to do is look for the ingredient list, and if it has anything other than cheese, you have something that is going to make it not work in sauces and won't taste good, called microcrystalline cellulose, or it's an anti-caking ingredient to keep the cheese from sticking back together. Once that's in there, you cannot get it out. So you'll never be able to make a cream sauce with it. You'll never be able to do. It's okay for putting on a cheap pizza. If you're doing low end pizza, that's perfect. For Domino's. But if you're doing real pizza, you want to use real cheese.
Okay, that's kind of what I was looking at. Is like, I know we have this. Everybody already has access to these cheeses. I just wondered if it was beneficial to get something that you're kind of cutting up yourself to, maintain all that freshness, or if it loses something in the packaging. So,
well, to me, if I'm going to use Parmesan on a pizza, it's going on after the pizza's cooked, and it's going on from a grater with a piece of Parmesan in it. and I'm grating it over the top of the pizza as I'm serving it. That way, all of those tropical fruit esters, all of those great intense aromas are still there, and they're wafting out because it's warm on top of the pizza. If you cook it, it's still good, but you lose all of the subtleties of the flavor. So for me, if I'm using parm as a topper on a pizza, it's going on after it comes out and after I've cut it. I'll go ahead and cut it, then do the cheese on it, and then serve it. And that way it's as fresh as it can be right before it hits the customer's plate.
Okay, well, I'm bringing this up because I was going to bring it up a little later, but do the characteristics change? And you obviously said over time you lose those floral notes and fruity notes, and then the cooking it just kills it outright. Are there other ways?
It changes it dramatically. It doesn't kill it. It mutes it. It takes away all of the high notes in the flavor.
Are there ways to use it in your pizzas, like while it's in the oven? Are there ways to incorporate it into your pizza where you don't lose that? I don't want to say like through dough, but something like that where it's kind of wrapped in the sauce. Is there a way to preserve all that while it's being cooked somehow?
I was going to say, certainly the more you bury it, the better it'll be. So if you, particularly if you're doing a lot of cooking, like if you're doing a Chicago style where you're putting the cheese on the bottom, you can do your mozz. If you put Parmesan under there, it will that flavor will penetrate into the sauce as it cooks. So yes, you will save some of that flavor, but basically once it hits about 125, 130 degrees, the aromas are gone. They've cooked off.
Really? Okay.
Side.
So as far as hard cheeses are, typically you definitely recommend post-bake item.
If what you want is that flavor of it, yes.
Yeah.
If what you're looking for is the texture of the crispy little bits on the top, put it on before you bake it, and you'll get the crispy as the parm, because parm doesn't melt, it just kind of crisps. So if you want that crispy little bits on the top, that's what you want to do. If you want both, put a little before, a little after. But they're different applications.
Okay, and this pretty much, I don't want to say rule applies to the whole world of hard cheeses, but for the most part, okay,
it does.
We can apply this to most of the hard cheeses. Okay,
absolutely. Do you want the flavor of the cheese as you're tasting it as it sits on the table, or do you want the kind of subtle richness that is in all cheese?
Yeah,
and it'll still be there. It'll retain some of that nuttiness. It'll just lose a lot of the high-end aromas and such. And they're both good applications. It just depends on what you're looking for.
Well, and then let's just jump right into the next one. That's a great segue. And, some creative ways to incorporate hard cheeses into dishes besides just putting them on the top. And you had several ideas. Well, I maybe had one of these, but I mean, what see if you can off the top of your head.
Well, as you mentioned, certainly hard cheeses are ideal to incorporate into baking, whether it's into a crust, whether it's into pizza sticks, whether it's into anything like that. Hard cheeses, like particularly Asiago, because with that little bit higher butter fat, it has a tendency to darken or lightly brown without getting too dark. So Parmesan will get a little darker because it's more protein browns. But yeah, they're both good for that application.
All right, you also mentioned earlier. You actually brought it up too. The cheese crisps.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite things actually for Parmesan. Especially for young Parmesan, it's the things you're seeing right there. If you do that with the American 10-month Parmesan, they work perfectly. I guarantee you that's what that's made with, or I would almost bet.
Yeah, I won't. If anybody else wants to see it, they can just Google it.
Right.
I won't make everybody else watch it. I'm a kind of a good host. He also mentioned pesto sauces because obviously most of those pesto sauces have a cheese of some kind like that in there. So
if you're going to make pesto, it's herb, cheese, nut, oil. If you have those, it's pesto. It can be dried tomatoes. It can be the one everybody knows in America, the green one. That's pesto genovese. That right there is one specific recipe for pesto. Pesto just means paste, or um, it's just a sauce. Basically, it's a mix, and everybody in Italy makes one, and everybody makes them different. So you can use pine nuts like they show you here. You can use cashews. You can use macadamias. You can use almonds. You can use any kind of nut you want. You can use olive oil. You can use cashew oil. You can use peanut oil. You can use vegetable oil. Anything you want. You can use green parsley. You can use flat leaf parsley. You can use cilantro.
Okay. Reclaiming my time, sir. That was good. I was watching this and I'm listening and I'm like, holy shit, he's going to keep going. Excuse me. I just swore.
I love pesto, man. Pesto's a great sauce.
It is. It really is. I didn't have the appreciation for it. Actually, when I was working in pizzerias until later. So I'm just, like I said, I was fascinated. I was just watching that. That cracked me up so much. Yeah, but it's an easy one that you can, I don't want to say an easy one that you can, yeah, they require most of those hard cheeses. Yeah. Yep. Also, I was thinking this is kind of a phone it in one, appetizer plates or,
Sure.
Charcuterie, or, I guess that would be the one. Meat and cheese plate, cheese and fruit plate.
If you're doing a mixed charcuterie cheese platter, then hard cheeses are always on that. That is one of the classics that'll be in any platter. And they are perfect for you can use it like breading. You can do shrimp, fried shrimp in it. You can do you can do it as a coating on almost anything that you're going to saute or pan fry. So it can be used in a lot of different applications.
I like the frying aspect of it. I hadn't thought of that, but I mean, it's pretty much how you're making those cheese crisps, Parmesan crisps, almost. Right. So, do you think like charcuterie for somebody who has hard cheeses, are they pretty? I mean, they're on most menus, so they must be. I know I always ask the questions that most of you guys already know, but are they worth it for somebody to look at if they're getting hard cheeses for, say, one menu item? As far as nobody wants to buy one thing for one menu item. So,
right.
Is it cost effective to do these with limited, like 2 or 3 of these types of cheeses? Or do they need a big ton of them to make it worth, the effort?
No, to be honest, if you're running a pizzeria that is, got a single deck oven, maybe 2 decks, and you're putting out 100 pies a day, you don't need 5 hard cheeses in your
That's true.
If you're running a shop that size, a 1-man shop or a 2-man shop, 2-person shop, that there you're going to want a hard cheese, and you're going to want it on your salad, and you're going to want it on your pizza, and you're going to want it on your any lasagnas or any Italian plate dishes.
Yeah,
it's going to be the one size fits all. If you're a little bigger, if you've got a few different locations, maybe you have 2. If you've got a chain, maybe you have 3. But these are not cheap cheeses to buy. And there's not enough of a differentiation in flavor in most of them to really warrant owning 3 or 4 of them at any one time. It's just, the aged Gouda is the only one that is like radically different than all the rest.
Well, and I guess by the fact that you mentioned aged, we shall transition to my next question of cheese aging.
Mm-hmm.
The older the better? Or I assume as I'm asking the question, I know the answer depends on the cheese, region, type, and what you want. So, just a brief couple examples of where aging is better and where aging is not. One you want to get older and one younger.
Just like wine, if you think about it like a wine, all wines benefit from a little bit of aging. Some benefit from as little as 3 weeks for Nouveau Beaujolais, but others benefit from a year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year. So hard cheeses is the same thing. Some of them are beautiful within a window. Like I said, my favorite for Parmigiano Reggiano is between about 18 and 28 months. That's when I think it's perfect. It's released at about 22 to 24 months typically, and that is ideal. At 36 months, it's a great hard cheese, but it's not the same anymore. So in that case, for me, aging is not better beyond a certain point. Other cheeses I've had, like Gouda, I've had that at 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 year, 20, 25 year. In my
Wow.
book, it gets nothing but better. It gets more caramely and butterscotchy and intense. So I've never had that go to a point where I didn't think it was still improving.
Okay.
So just depends.
All right. I had
Oh, and I should say Romano. I said Gouda is the only one that's dramatically different. Romano is way different than all the rest too. So if you want to have two cheeses in your shop, Romano and one of the hard like Asiago, Piave Vecchio, Dry Jack, Parmesan. One of those four and Romano. That'll give you two dramatically different flavors in hard cheese.
okay, and both of those are. No, you answered it. You got it. I had a really good, fun thing coming up in my head, and I can't remember for the life of me what it was. But
oh no, I stepped on you. I'm sorry.
No, you didn't, and that's the worst part. Is it just was here and went right out. So, all right. Well, I guess the last thing is that you got your ear to the ground. I know you got some exciting things coming up for you. I don't know if you could talk about any of it, but why don't you tell me your your favorite hard cheese and how to use it, and or your favorite way that it is used on pizza? I guess it would be after you cook the pizza, but
yeah,
what's your favorite?
Of the ones that I would use on pizza, in a traditional way, Parmesan is. I hate to say it, Parmigiano Reggiano is. That's the king of hard cheese. It really is. There is there for a reason. I love a lot of the American cheeses. I promote them all the time. They're outstanding, and Parmigiano Reggiano is hard to beat. And most people that are honest will tell you the truth.
That's good.
So as far as ones that are not that, outside of that one, I like the intensity of a real Pecorino Romano, and I like the nuttiness of a Dry Jack. So those are the two that I use a lot.
Very cool. I mean, I think those will probably be the ones everybody should run out and try to. If you're not using Parmesan already, you can, but I assume most people have it somewhere. So, all right. So, what should we be all watching out for as far as what's coming up in the future here? What should we be watching in the world of cheese?
Well, I think one of the things that you're seeing that I've noticed is that there's a lot more varieties of cheese being offered on pizza menus. The days of having a pizza blend for everything you make are gone. If you don't have at least 2 or 3 different offerings for cheeses on your pizza, you're out of business soon. There's only a handful of old traditional places that are still getting by fresh mozzarella or their whatever provolone blend. But most modern pizzerias, if you don't have at least 3 or 4 cheeses available on your menu, you're missing out. So that's one thing that I'm very pleased to see has really continued to grow over the last 20 years, basically.
The growth of, the variety that's out there. And I want to thank everybody for joining us. Tune in next week again for Alessio Lacco, the Atlanta Pizza Truck, first AVPN certified mobile unit. I'm going to ask one more question. If you guys have any questions, last minute you want to get in here for Mark before I release him back to the wild where he is from. But I want to ask you, since I am doing this vegan diet, it'd be remiss if I didn't. Vegan cheese, he says through his teeth. I haven't found a good one yet. I should say I haven't found one that is definitely cheese. You can always tell it's vegan cheese. There are some that are better than others, but
certainly.
What do you think about that? Should pizzerias make a concerted effort to have that? Obviously, your market will dictate it, but do you think that's something that most people should kind of at least think about if it hasn't hit them yet? Should maybe
I was going to say if your market is 25% vegan, you jolly well better have some vegan cheese in there. If you get a request for one a week, yeah, sorry, that ain't worth carrying it. The one thing I will say, just like all the things that are plant-based that are called milk, I will call it milk when you show me how to milk an almond. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. But as far as what I would call congealed vegetable protein and fat meltable substances, they have come a long way since the original tofu-rella. but they are still not cheese. That's not cheese. I'm sorry.
They're
Is the
trying.
product
Yeah.
edible? Is it better than it used to be? Absolutely. If you can't eat cheese, is it better than not having pizza? God, yes. But it's not cheese, man. Not cheese.
Well, I am getting ready to. Well, I am doing the vegan journey. So if you go to pmq.com/BVJ, Brian's Vegan Journey, BVJ, you can see some of the stuff. I'm trying to answer this, as far as making those plant-based proteins on my own. Is it cost effective? Should I just buy it? It's taking this first month to kind of get some of this product to roll in. So we're going to have some recipes and stuff coming up. And I don't know. I've tried a couple recipes on my own as far as making cheese, but have you ever tried to make one, Mark?
Vegan cheese?
Yeah.
No.
As a cheese guy, have you not?
I have a hard enough time trying to figure out how to make cow's milk cheeses at home. I've made tofu, and the process of making vegan cheese and making tofu, from what I understand, is not a whole lot different at the outset.
Okay.
You're trying to get the proteins and the fats out and get all the vegetable matter disposed of. So it's I think a fairly similar process, but I have no idea. I could be talking completely out of the wrong side of my mouth. I'm just speculating here. I want that to be true.
Yeah, I appreciate the honesty. I really do. It's refreshing. So what's next in your world? I stepped on you earlier to go back, but you have some things planned coming, or exciting things coming up, but I'm not sure if you could share them or not. So
I can share them, everybody. I'm excited. I'm getting back.
So what's up with you? What's going on?
I've been stuck basically at home. We did one trade show last year in Las Vegas. Pizza Expo was in August in Las Vegas. My kind of fun.
Yeah.
But this year I'm headed out a couple of weeks to Dubai for the Gulf Food Show. I'm just stoked for that. Get back to international travel. Pizza Expo is going to be in March, and I believe I'll be at the FHA show in Singapore in May. So I've got a few gigs lined up that are getting me out of the beautiful redwoods. I love it here, but I've been here for 23 months now, and I'm ready to get out. So
yeah. I can imagine. We'll also be over there by the expo, PMQ. As far as I know, we are going to be at the bar and restaurant show, formerly the nightclub and bar show. They're incorporating restaurant aspect to it. So we will be there walking the aisles. We'll have a booth. So hopefully we can cross paths, get a picture.
I think
veggies, smoothie.
I'll be on the Gold Coast aisle with California Milk Advisory Board.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
You'll be thrilled with this. We're introducing a new that I probably can't say. We will have we'll have a new oven this year. I can't say who's or what, but yeah, we'll be introducing a new oven this year
at Expo. So everybody go to Expo to find out.
That's it. So yeah,
that was nice.
Fun. We're gonna be doing all sorts of live goes.
Yeah, it's a nice teaser. They have to go. Yeah. You got them. You got them hooked. Yeah. Well, we'll be back next week, as I said, the 25th, or I'm sorry, the 1st, February 1st, 2 p.m. with Alessio Lacco. I've been Brian Hernandez with Mark the Cheese Dude, Todd. Everybody, you guys all stay safe, stay sane. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll see you guys